And so they were in the Port of the Dalles. They wanted to expand, and the Port of the Dalles said, we don't. Bye-bye, because they're actually out of room in the Dalles. There's a real need for industrial land right now. And so we said, we got lots, come on over.
So the next question for Michael Scott Rumbeck. How do you feel about the DREAM Act?
I think it was an act that had good intentions, but it's a poor use of money. And I would not vote for the DREAM Act. And you know, that's one of the things that I think my opponent and I are different on. He supported it. I'm sorry, I would not support it. Even though the intentions are good. I think, you know, the intentions are to help children and fund children, higher education, and children of folks that are undocumented. I wouldn't, I think there are other things that we need to pay for before that. So I would not support it. Thank you.
Mark Boardman, Sheriff. Rumor around, I hate when things start out with rumor. Rumor around the county is that one of the sheriff's deputies is under investigation for threatening an elected official. Can you tell us about that?
No.
Rebuttal.
I'm interested too.
Who was threatened?
Okay,
Maybe it's me.
and this one, we asked people to be kind of respectful, so I think I'm going to edit this a little bit. And I believe this is for both candidates, and the topic is rape. How much injury would someone need to have for you to take seriously an accusation of rape? And we're going to leave it at that.
Who's this?
Let's go with Bob.
I think, sorry. I think that the definition of rape legally is penetration. So if there's any penetration, that's rape. Then you have different degrees of sex offenses, if it's fondling or various things like that. I'm not quite sure what the question is getting at, other than any honorable law enforcement officer wouldn't tolerate any of that. Whoever committed that crime would be arrested and sent through the prosecution process.
Maybe I should not edit it. I'll clarify it. Maybe this will clarify it. It just seems, okay, take serious an accusation of rape. One broken bone, maybe a knocked out tooth, or something more serious. So I think that I'll let you explain.
Just
that.
what you read there would be definitely an assault, but I guess, anyway, the question of rape, I think I answered. Knocked out tooth or the broken bone is serious assault. And again, it would cause somebody to be arrested, for violating that.
The original question seemed to question whether or not the law enforcement take it seriously, is what I'm gathering from that, this accusation. And I think that any charge of rape has to be taken on its face value. We investigate until there's nothing else to pursue. We look for that evidence and take us wherever that evidence leads us. So if there is, if it turns out to be no evidence to support the rape, which is not going to be just the physical examination and the talks and the crime lab examination, but any other circumstantial evidence and interviews and so forth that are personal to that. The totality of the circumstances where you make that final decision, and that's usually laid at the prosecutor's office after you've done all your fact finding. So if the question is, as I interpreted it, yes, you have to take every accusation of rape seriously. And the follow-on there about the broken tooth or broken bone, you know, that's simply, that's a crime in itself, independent of the rape charge if it's a third-degree assault there. So, that depending on if there's long protracted injury and what the mechanism of the assault was that was used.
Next question is for Mike Richards. You've been a Libertarian supporter in the past presidential election. So why are you running as a Republican for commissioner and not a Libertarian?
That is true. I actually supported, in the primary for 2012, I supported Ron Paul
He's a
for
Republican.
president. And the reason that I did that was because I consider myself a conservative. And I believe that the libertarian philosophy is slightly more conservative than Republican, the Republican brand of conservatism. And the reason for that is that these days, you don't really see the Republicans defending the principles that made this country great. Constitutional rule of law, fiscal responsibility, and those types of things. And so, once the primary was over, Ron Paul did not win, I spent my time supporting the other Republican candidates because I am a conservative. I don't consider myself a libertarian. I don't agree with some of the things that the libertarians believe in. And so I spent my time up in the booth that we had over there in White Salmon promoting every Republican candidate that we had, including Mitt Romney. It wasn't my first choice. But Ron Paul ran as a Republican. He was a Republican candidate for president, and that's why.
This question is for Mr. Sauter. Can you explain the fiscal sustainability initiative and do you support it?
Wow, I'm amazed that anybody even knows what that is. That's impressive. Fiscal Sustainability Initiative, or FSI as we call it, is actually an initiative that WASAC, which is the Washington State Association of Counties, has initiated. We started on about a year ago. I actually was on the drafting committee for that. And what that is, it's an initiative to help, the long-term goal is to educate the legislature about the fiscal health of counties. As I have alluded to before, Clickitat County is the envy of the other counties in the state. This is not really an issue for us, but counties are in dire straits across the state of Washington. And when you look at their revenues and what their expenses have done and what their funding sources are, and they're really kind of the stepchild of everybody else. Meaning we're the ones on the ground at the local level that have to provide the services, and yet we kind of get what we get as far as the state loves to mandate services that they either don't provide funding for, or they provide some funding for, and then it sort of disappears over time. And it's kind of led counties to say, well, at some point, why do we have a state government if they're not, we're providing all the services, they're collecting all the money. And so what the initiative is we have been working on this, as I said, for about a year. There are meetings with legislators pre-legislative session to just educate them about the plight of counties, because most legislators don't come from county government. It's very interesting that most legislators come from city experience, which is a completely different fiscal situation than counties. They're the folks that go from county commissioner, county government into the legislature are really rare. And so if you haven't done it, you don't understand it. And so yeah, I totally support it. I have worked on it, and I hope it succeeds. It's not a real issue for us, but I'm working on it because it's an issue for the other counties in the state. Maybe that wasn't too boring for you.
I've been carrying this around for a long time, wanting to get a chance to use it. This is the one sheet, this is like a fact sheet of the Fiscal Sustainability Initiative. And it's interesting because in here it describes what it is that WASAC is trying to accomplish. And it's interesting from the standpoint that they make the case in here that the services are in dire straits. Counties are having trouble funding the services. However, all the cuts that can be made have already been made. And so really what it's advocating for is elimination of a 1% cap on counties increasing sales taxes. So they're trying to get it to where the counties have more tools at their disposal to raise revenues, is kind of what it looks like to me. If anybody wants to look at this afterwards, please see me, and I've got a copy of it. I don't support it. This is really kind of a backhanded attempt to raise your taxes, and so no, I don't support the fiscal sustainability initiative.
Just for rebuttal, I actually helped draft that, so. So I obviously do. Although it's an interesting, you do raise a point as far as the 1% property tax cap. There was a heated discussion within the Wasack family about that. And what's actually being advocated for was it would give the option locally to either go out to the voters and it would be tied to inflation is what it would be tied to. The 1% property tax cap limitation, when you look at when counties got in dire financial position, it happened when that went in. Because property tax is basically where counties get all their revenue, almost all of their revenue, except for us. And, so you are capped at 1%, that's it. And expenses, inflation generally runs it's more than 1%. And over time, what we've seen is just an erosion of the ability of counties to be able to provide the services that they have to. And so we want to have, it would be a local option. We certainly wouldn't do it here. We have all kinds of taxing authority in this county that we don't use. We have the lowest sales tax rates in the state. And we could change them tomorrow. Council-matic, I'd be run out of town, but we could do it, and we choose not to. And so it's about having the option locally. It's about local control.
Let me do one quick just a little footnote on this. At the end of this page, there is a link, there's an email address to Josh Weiss, who is apparently he's the Director of Policy and Legislative Relations, and it says to get additional information. So I sent him an email, and I asked him, I said, what initiatives is Wasack pursuing to lobby the state to reduce some of the mandates, some of these mandated services that he spoke to? And I got absolutely no response from him, which I thought was kind of telling.
Okay.
I'm a rule follower.
Moving on. This question is for Bob Saunders. Have you ever received any kickback or finder's fee from the trespass civil compromise?
Really? It's gotten pretty nasty. No, the answer is no, never.
There were a few questions similar, so we'll just ask one here, and it's to Mr. Sauter. The county personnel policy states that reimbursement for travel expense of privately owned vehicles, mileage shall be based on departure from the workstation or residence to the destination. This contradicts the Office of Financial Management, Chapter 10. Will this contradiction be fixed if you are reelected?
No, because there is no contradiction. It's good, I'm glad somebody asked about that, because as I'm sure everybody in this room probably knows, there's been an ongoing investigation that was brought up from a citizen complaint regarding this and a whole host of other allegations that were made about principally mine, but commissioners' travel in general, which was then referred to the Attorney General and the Washington State Patrol, who have concluded their investigation, which was nice, because I really thank the State Patrol for doing, they did an extremely thorough job, and they did it very timely because they were sensitive about the implications with an election. And so, here it is. And all of the allegations that were in that letter were all completely refuted. And so, the commissioners, myself personally, were completely exonerated of all of the allegations that were made in the citizen complaints from, there was actually 3 different people, 3 citizens that were interviewed. This is available, as far as this is a public record. If anybody's interested, you can read it. The only comment I would have on it is, I would hate to think of what this cost, as far as the taxpayers to go through this. And I can tell you what it cost me to go through it as a person. And so it's nice that I've been completely exonerated. So any questions that have to do with the allegations that were made, they've already been answered. There aren't any. There are no conflicts. There are no anything. And it's all right. Here's the written proof of it. So thank you.
So for sheriff, and I believe this is for both of you, when was the last time you had any training? And I believe Mark was first this time.
Well, the last training I had was, Spokane. I went to a conference in May for that. And that was the WASPIC, Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs training. And that conference had information on some of the events that had happened down in LA, and when there was a shooting, and how the lessons learned from that event down there, when there was a rogue prior law enforcement officer. He had Navy background and so forth, and he went haywire. It started out in LA and stretched down into San Diego. That was the main body of training that I took away from that. But there was workshops throughout as far as management of the office of sheriff and police chief. So I've gone to 3 different trainings over the course of this past year. That was one of them. I also went to training for mid-level management, and then another one for executive leadership management for rural executives. Thank you.
Well, I'm kind of at loss here because since I was terminated January 10th, I haven't been to any training. Prior to that, however, last year, every officer has a mandatory, I believe it's 24 hours or whatever a year of training that has to be done. And I've gone through taser training, firearms training, sexual harassment training, various things like that. So I can only speak for 2013, I think.
I'm guessing this one's for Dave. Is the development at the airport area shared by the Dalles in Wasco County?
I assume they're talking about the airport development.
Yes.
I would guess. It's not shared by Wasco County. It is the airport property. There's about 1,000 acres, and it's actually jointly owned by the city of the Dalles in Klickitat County. It was just the city, because it used to be the Dalles Municipal Airport, and it's not anymore. That's why it's Columbia Gorda Regional Airport now. The county acquired an interest in it, I want to say 9 or 10, probably 10 years ago, I will say. And so it's a jointly owned asset. And so I'm not really sure. I've often wondered about this. I think the city, when the transfer took place, they just gave half interest to the county. The county didn't pay anything for it or anything, and I think it because the city was looking for a partner is what they were looking for. It is interesting though that the city of the Dalles still does pay taxes on half of the airport, and so not that was part of it.
I think the question, I think they were asking, is the development, I think, are they sharing the cost?
Oh, the cost of development, yes. Anything that is on the airport property that is an airport asset, the cost of it is split 50-50 between the two. In full disclosure though, because I know there have been things said that that's not true, and people may be confused, like if there are assets, improvements that were built that were for the benefit of the community, the county did participate in those and the city did not, because why would the city of the Dalles build Dallesport, a new reservoir and a new booster pump and for their fire flow. They didn't do that. And so the county, again, in full disclosure, so people aren't confused about that, because that's some of the numbers that are getting thrown around. But the actual improvements at the airport, the business park, everything that's going on there, the buildings that are there, those are, the cost of those is shared 50-50 between the city and the Dalles.
Mike Richards and David Sauter, will you travel to support the landfill?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Would I travel to support the landfill? It depends on, you know, I would travel to the landfill during the course of a normal day to, you know, address any concerns that they have regarding, but I wouldn't travel to market the landfill, absolutely not. I would leave that up to Republic Services. I can't really expand on it too much more than that, no.
Yes, I mean, obviously, that's been a kind of a centerpiece of my efforts over the last 8 years, was helping to market the landfill. And we just have a difference of opinion when it comes to this, and that's fine. I believe that marketing of the landfill is, I don't know if I'd say the most, but it's certainly one of the most important things that we can do for the fiscal health of the county. The benefits that come from that touch every single person in the county. As far as we do, there's property tax abatement from that. Every single one of us pays less property tax because of the direct transfers that come from the landfill. And the argument's been made that Republic Services is a $20 billion company, which I don't know that, and I'm assuming that's inaccurate. I mean, they are an enormous company around the country. They're not I mean, and they're a big company here in Washington, but this unit of it is their customers, which we directly benefit from, the citizens, are in Washington State. And the folks that make the decisions on where those landfill contracts go are other county commissioners. They're our counterparts. They're my counterparts across the state. And so we, as a county, have unique access to those people. And no, we're not marketing as far as, we're not selling their business plan, we're not doing anything. All we're doing is communicating to them about the importance of the landfill in Clickitat County as far as what it means to our citizens, what benefits, what the jobs are, and that basically your waste contract in Washington is an asset. And that asset, if you're gonna do business, you should be doing business in the state of Washington. You should not be exporting those jobs out of the state. Because if you go with any of our competitors, it's getting exported out of the state. And there are 210 jobs here in Washington. Those are direct jobs, and that's very important. Plus the $9.5 million in revenue that the county receives every year from those tipping fees. And it's contemplated in the agreement that we are partners with Allied, or it's now Republic, it was Robanco, and that it's expected that that's part of our partnership, is that we will help facilitate these communications that are going on. And so there is something that we, as the county, as county commissioners, and county staff also participate in this, can do that nobody in their marketing department can do. And believe me, their marketing department is working really hard too. We work in conjunction with them. And so that's a really long answer. So yes, I would. I would travel. Have and will continue to.
Just a quick little rebuttal. This really comes down to one of the fundamental differences between me and the incumbent, is what do you expect your county government to do? Once we start having county government market for Robanco or Republic or whoever, where does it end? It's kind of a slippery slope, and this is one of the things. Once you have them start marketing for the bigger corporations around the county, what about the smaller ones? What about the ones that we spoke about earlier that aren't getting the same treatment? What about the general store in Glenwood? What about the general store in Goldendale? These people aren't These people are not receiving the same treatment and the same benefit from their government, and that is not the way the government is supposed to behave.
I disagree. I'm not marketing for Republic Service. I'm marketing for Klickitat County. That's who I'm marketing for. I'm marketing for the citizens of the county. And we do market for small business. We do market. We work all the time for that stuff. Part of the way that we're able to do that is we actually have some resources to be able to do that. You know, we can have staff in Olympia lobbying the legislature about things that affect small local businesses. We work a lot for SDS lumber, for private timber holders, as far as we spend dollars on, you know, there's the spotted frog stuff that's going on. You know, we have met with private, I know it's kind of funny, but it's true, it affects timber landowners, not just the big corporations, but the little mom and pops, and we are out there advocating, putting staff resources, my time, the other commissioners' time, and our staff people in helping support those industries. And the way we're able to do that is because we actually have a couple dollars. Thank you.
This is for the sheriff. How do you feel about unmarked patrol cars? And we'll go with Mark first. I can't remember where we were. So.
That's a great question, and it actually is germane to something that's come up recently. We've been discussing this RCW 46, which is the traffic title, and there's a subsection 08 on equipment, and then 065 is the particular section that deals with the requirement of official government vehicles, not just police vehicles or sheriff's vehicles, having to be marked. The exemptions are state patrol, but other municipalities are required to have them marked. So we had 4 vehicles that were on order arrangement with the board, that we got that approved for the replacement cycle. They also were generous enough to allow us to catch up some ground that we lost in vehicle replacement, so for a total of 6 vehicles. Those last 2, I anticipate they were going to be an unmarked car. We're going to put them, make them, you know, a traffic unit, and have the light bars inside, and just basically a low-profile car. But that has changed. This has come to my attention. This requirement is different than my experience with the state patrol. The rules are different, so we're going to make sure that we obey and follow those rules. And the rules are that they are fully marked. So the cars that were going to be all black in this case, they're going to have the white plastic wrap. They're going to be the black and white. We'll have everything uniform. All the vehicles will be marked just exactly the same, and the decals will go on there. So that's a case in point of the decision that's been made to comply with that particular question, and that's happened within the last 24 hours.
I think that would be marked vehicles. Does a couple things. It acts as a deterrent because people see the marked unit. It's not playing sneaky Pete, speed traps, or any of that type of stuff. And it does one other thing. By statute, if you have somebody run on you or elude, you need a marked unit. You got to be able to establish that individual knew he was being chased by the police and was trying to get away. And having marked units would satisfy that requirement.
I'm going to ask a question, follow up on this.
Yeah.
I had, this came up in the news. I don't know if you guys seen it. Gavin Syme from up in my area. Afraid, yes. He actually pulled a unmarked police car over. I don't know if you guys have seen that on. He pulled the police car over, waved him down, and issued a warning to him that he needed to get his police car marked. And it made national headline. It went all over the news.
I've seen that.
I don't know if you guys seen that yet.
We kind of have.
I was aware of it. This has gone up to, that matter went up to WASPIC, the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police case. Well, what of it? Where are we at on this? And then they referred back to our local legal counsel. And as I say, we've already made that check. I would like to just reiterate what Bob said. Good justification You want to have vehicles that are readily identifiable as law enforcement, whether you're up in the Tule Dinkers with somebody that's a long way from any regular commerce and traffic, you're immediately recognized that you are an official vehicle. And the same would go for your daughter or your wife that gets stopped in some dark, rainy night and they can't make out the vehicle. Just knowing that security is that it isn't somebody with a blue light and that's all you got. You know, that might be an unmarked car. Here you've got that added assurance that it is a legitimate officer making the traffic stop.
Okay, the next one is for county commissioners, and it's for both. Goldendale Aluminum Plant, railroad, interstate access. What could you do to bring in industry? And
I think I went first last time.
Goldendale, I assume the question is the old aluminum plant as far as the site, which is where the old smelter was, and if anybody's been out that way, it's not there anymore as far as the actual structure's been removed too, they scrapped it all. What can the county do? That is, I can think of a couple different things that we are actually working on right now, is there are some cleanup issues at the old site. A lot of times aluminum smelting, there's environmental issues from the process. And that's kind of a cloud on most of the area is clean, but there's part of it that there's a question about it. And so the county has been working with the Department of Ecology and the owner of the site to try to help facilitate some kind of cleanup so that site, the whole site, can get a clean bill of health. Because it's a great industrial site because it has all of those attributes that are there as far as the rail, the water, the power, which is not insignificant as far as it's very expensive to bring that volume, that capacity of electricity into that site. The other thing that we're working on, and it's really in conjunction with the PUD, is, and maybe people have heard about it a little bit, we're just exploring it, is pump storage there, which is a proposal to put it would basically be two pools, a high pool and a low pool. When there's surplus electricity, you pump the water up the hill, and then it's like a battery, it's stored, and then it runs back down when you need the power. And the principal benefit of it is it would help firm up the electrical, from renewables. Because as we've been fortunate that we've had a huge amount of interest in wind in Klickitat County. But the downside of it is, of course, it's a renewable, so it's intermittent. And so this takes the uncertainty out of that. That's nothing that the county would be involved in as far as the financial piece of it, because it's enormous. It's estimated at about $2.5 billion to build the project that they want to build there. We're actually working in conjunction with Oregon counties because they have a huge wind industry there. It would be a regional asset. But the reason we have the very best place, probably arguably in the country, for one of these is there. But what we're really interested in are the jobs during the construction, and then the long-term jobs are not a lot. It's only about 100, 120 jobs. But $2.5 billion of tax base that was in Klickitat County, that would be unbelievable what that would do. The entire tax base of the county right now is $3 billion. And I can't imagine that pump storage would require many services as far as in exchange for what it was paying in property taxes. I think I answered that question.
Yeah, my understanding is I've gone around and watched all these debates between the PUD commissioners. One of the things that constantly comes up is this pump storage facility out there at the old aluminum plant. And it's a multi-billion-dollar project, as he just said. It's very unlikely that it's going to happen. I can't say it won't happen. Stranger things have happened. But that would be something for the PUD and the external agencies to work on. As far as the county goes with the aluminum plant out there, one of the things that you could do, once the cleanup is done, you could make that property available for an outside interest, some private interest that had a need for that much real estate, they could come in and they could develop it for their own private use. As far as the county investing funds in that site, that's kind of hard to understand why they would.
No, they can never, but yeah, and maybe I don't want folks to misunderstand. We're not contemplating making any investments. It's private land now. It's not in public ownership now. In fact, we would be prohibited from investing in it because it's private land. It's available now for private development, and we are assisting the owners in trying to market that to bring a large, and it's actually been looked at, a Chinese manufacturing company looked at it here a couple of years ago. Data farm like Google, that was a place that it was looked at because it had access to all that power, very firm power, because it's really nice to be able to say, here it is, there's the source, because the McNary Dam is right there. And I can say the Chinese folks were really impressed with, wow, you got a guaranteed electric supply, power supply, right there. Cool.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Who owns it?
I think it's a consortium. The previous, because it was.
It's a group out of New York, I believe.
Yeah, I believe so now, and I think the previous owner still has some ownership stake in it.
This question did not address who it was to, so I'm just going to ask every one of you guys. What agencies will you work with if elected? That's one question. What new technologies will you implement if elected? Start with Mike.
What agencies would I work with? Anything that I'm required to by the Constitution and the RCWs. I mean, that's a fairly straightforward answer. What was the second part?
What technologies will you implement if elected?
Well, my background's in technology. I would love to work on every kind of technology there is. What technologies would you implement? Some of the things I've done, and this is one of the things I brought up recently, was in my brief tenure as the High Prairie Community Council president, we have implemented a new website which contains a lot of information about what's going on in the community. We've also started videotaping all of our meetings so that residents in the area who can't attend the meetings can view the meetings. If it comes up at some point, somebody wants to know, what did they say 3 months ago? It's right there online, available for them. So one of the things that I'm really about is transparency in government using technology.
Well, I'll answer that in a way that by way of example with each of the different departments. With the different offices that we work with, prosecutor, we can have the ability to transfer information that's now legally acceptable to give affidavits to the prosecutor electronically and have electronic signature. In the working with technical services, I've already engaged with them. They're helping us beta test these mobile data terminals, or the wireless computers in the patrol cars. So already doing that, we're going to continue to work with them. With the courts, we're working with them to improve the cycle of the improvement with the paperwork, civil paperwork and so forth, access. This electronic record-keeping system that all law enforcement agencies access. Is basically the trunk that they get data from all sorts of different government entities out of. So technology, I've kind of gone from different organizations or offices within the county government to the technology there. But we'll continue to have good working relationship with the Washington State Patrol and with each of the local police departments. We work with the DEM right now on these practice exercises. We got one coming up here on the 29th, I believe it is, down at Bingen Point. We got a emergency evacuation exercise that we're going to have a tabletop exercise, and different people are acting out the scenario as if there was some major burst of a line or a train derailment down in Bingen. How are we going to get all those people in the industries and business employees out from behind that closure, a partial closure due to an incident on the railroad? So those are some examples of ways that I will continue to and have worked with the other agencies within the county. The technologies, I touched on the laptops. That was kind of my baby, spearheading that program, where we have settled on the G-Tech laptop. It's a space saver, it's an efficiency, it saves on the amount of fuel coming and going. It allows us to transfer reports wirelessly back and forth to the servers at the county. And technology also with the vehicles. We're opting to go with the SUV instead of the patrol car. Or the Crown Vic tried and true vehicle platform. What this is going to allow us to do is they're all-wheel drive, so that saves us on tire contract expenses. It allows us to use one tire all year round, and when that tire wears out, depending on what the wear and tear is for that particular vehicle, it's not just going to be replaced by a winter tire come November 1st and come off on April 1st. We'll have the ability to minimize the rotation, the storage, and the mount and remount fees.
That's actually the 30-second one.
For me, obviously as a state rep, there's a myriad of agencies that you would work with. I guess to focus in on a few things, one would be court reform. I think that in Superior Court, where a lot of the cases are heard, the bigger cases, that there are some smaller cases that are caught up in Superior Court that can be moved over to District Court. I've been an attorney since '92, been a prosecutor, been a pro tem judge in Yakima County. I think there are some things with electronic filing and so forth that can make things more efficient. But to go along with what Mark was saying, one of my other jobs is I'm still kind of wrapping up an Army career, and I'm a major in the reserves. I work at NORAD Northcom, and one of my roles is, if there's a domestic incident, how to harmonize not only the local and state resources, but to harmonize those with the federal response resources. And that's something I've been working on for the past 3 years at the federal level that I don't get to talk about too much, and it's kind of beyond what a lot of folks do, but it is definitely something that I think I bring that's probably a unique perspective that a state representative would have. How does DOD, that is the Department of Defense, respond to a significant event in the United States and stay within the parameters of the Constitution? So that would probably be something that I would bring a very unique perspective to. Thanks.
Oh, what agencies will I work with? All of them that I'm required to and do, no matter how painful it is. We work with a lot of agencies. I do now, as far as state and federal agencies, Department of Ecology and Department of Historical Preservation, and there's a whole list of agencies that we have to work with. And that's one of the things that people understand, that local government does not exist in a bubble. It is, we're not our own country. We have interactions outside of our county, a lot of interactions outside of our county, and that's why it's necessary to interact with those agencies, because a lot of times it's really at the agency level is where those impacts come from that affect us here. And agencies are much more difficult to control than really elected officials. Elected officials are pretty directly connected, especially at the local level. You can call me, and if you're upset about something we're doing, if an agency's doing something, it's hard because you don't know who you're supposed to be talking to. And that's one thing as a commissioner, we're one of the interfaces between the folks, the people, and the agency, because we know who the players are and we know who to talk to. And so that's one thing we do. As far as technology, one thing that we have started, we're continuing, we're trying to kind of update the county as far as technology, information services. We have a very robust IT department. We had gone, and I was the test as far as these are the iPad. I had my own at home for a couple of years and liked it. We used to have, as the commissioners, we have our packet the infamous packet every week, which we would get on Thursdays at noon. It was available, or they shipped it to us. And it, depending on what we had, it's 300-400 pages. I mean, it's a big old thing. And there was a lot of trees died every year, every week, to produce that stuff. And so I I had said, have we thought about getting rid of that? And so, plus for us, if we weren't happened to be in Goldendale, we had a whole courier system. They brought it to the Pioneer Center. I had to drive into the Pioneer Center to get my packet and stuff. And so now they don't. We went to, and I tried it first for 6 months. So then it's sent to our iPad, which I can download from anywhere. I don't have to go anywhere. So it's actually saved time and money. The staff loves it because it was really crazy. Most of the packet that got put together came to the board. It's all consolidated from all the departments. It was in electronic format. And then they printed it to give us a packet. We said, why don't you just put it as it comes, and it'll work. And it's worked really well. We would have done it earlier, but Commissioner Thayer said absolutely not until he left. He would not do it. And so when Ray left, then we implemented it, and it's worked pretty well.
The different agencies, and of course, I've worked with all the county agencies, prosecutor's office, commissioners, the courts, assessors, treasurers, all the county agencies. And I feel comfortable in saying that I'll have a good working relationship with the outside law enforcement agencies, as soon as I have their support in this election. And I think that's vital to utilize some of the budget money for training and make it a co-op with the other agencies so that we're not spending dollars twice. One agency spending for the same training that our officers are getting, bring them together. Technology, I wholeheartedly agree with Mark on that. We're way out of date. We need computers in those vehicles. It'll save the officers a lot of time, save a lot of, they'll pay for it in time just with gasoline. So it's a very important program. And I commend Mark if he's the one who started that program. I think that's a good deal. And I would certainly carry on with that program. And anytime we can get into modern technology and move ahead with it, we're smart to do so. And one of the things that I would really like to see, and it's kind of puzzled why we haven't done it, and that's electronic search warrants. Where you call on the telephonic search warrants. 1976, we were doing that in Park County. In other words, give you a quick example. Let's say we need to recover, get a search warrant for a blood sample, or whatever it might be, but the judge is not available here in Goldendale, where we'd be working out of the office there. We would literally have to drive to the judge over on the west side, wake him up at 2 in the morning, and get them to sign the search warrant, read it and sign it if they agreed there was probable cause. And that's after waking the prosecutor's office up for a review of that before he takes it to the judge. The point I'm getting at, telephonically, that can be done over the telephone. That'd save that hour over, it'd save that hour back. You speed it up, and you're gonna be much more proficient in getting the job done. And really, it's been done in other jurisdictions for years, and it should be done right here in this year. So I would be very supportive of modern technology in many ways. And obviously, you owe it to the public to cooperate and get along with other agencies. That's an absolute. And of course, the one that I really want to make an impression upon and work with is the boss, and that's the public citizens.
So we're gonna, since Michael, we didn't know he was gonna show up and he didn't get very many questions, we're gonna open it up to the floor. If anybody has any questions for Michael Scott Brumback. None? Peter.
What's your position on funding the Gorge Commission?
Yeah, the old Gorge Commission. Well, shocks to the system aren't usually good. So, but in principle, I think to have that federal layer is something that kind of runs counter to me. I think that the folks here should be able to control their own land. I know that there's been some issues about drawing boundaries around urban areas. It's basically a growth management act to restrict the use that a person has of their own property, and I have an issue with that. But I'm not the kind that gets all radical either and just say, And it's something that's in existence. It's in cooperation with Oregon. There's a federal input. So, you know, I don't like it in principle. It's not something I probably would have agreed with originally. But like I said, I wouldn't just try to tear things down just to tear them down and be radical. I think you have to work with people to return their property rights. I'm a property rights guy. And if you own your property and you can't improve it or use your property, it's yours in theory then, not in reality. And I have a very big issue with that.
So specifically to Klickitat County, where they're refusing to review any new land use applications from the middle of 2013 until present, what can our legislature, what can you do to get them off dead center?
You know, I mean, I don't know precisely, but I would try to find folks that are like-minded, that have that same philosophy, and reason with people and work with people, because the fundamental premise is, if you own your property, you have a right to control it. And I don't like layers of government. I think that they impede progress. But I do understand the motive for it. It's the same with the DREAM Act. I mean, there's good motives there. I mean, this is a beautiful area of the country, all right? It's absolutely beautiful, and I understand the motive behind it. It's just that you can't penalize people who own their properties for that goal. So, I know it's a vague answer and not precise. I don't know precisely what could be done, but I think whatever can be done to return their control to the property owner is paramount to me. Or else it's a taking, is really what it is.
The city act has restricted use and value of, and diminished the value of property in Klickitat County, anything within the overlay. And they keep coming up with new names like spatial management, general management, which has no bearing on what the spatial management is by definition in this county. They have their own definitions, and we have people right now within the overlay that they find a plant, 200-foot boundary around the plant. If you got a gray squirrels, you have another setback. If you have the Oregon white oak, you have another setback. Pretty quick, you have a trail to your house, but you can't hardly leave it. And it's to the point it's ridiculous.